their rush?
Good afternoon, everyone. Last night was a nightmare, right? I know it wasn't only for a particular group of people, but I can say that as someone that spent also 10 hours to come from Washington Street at Brooklyn to come here at 100 Argent Street, leaving Brooklyn at 4:50 and getting here at 2:20 in the morning, make me part of a large group of New Yorkers that went through the similar situation last night. So we are not demanding a special treatment to any politician, to anyone in particular. What we know is that last night, yesterday, the government failed to New Yorkers. We had to learn from that situation in order to avoid similar things to happen in our city. I'm here joined by my good friends, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso, who chaired the Committee of Sanitation, and Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa, members of Community Board 12, and many other members of my community. What happened yesterday, as I said, was a nightmare that could be avoidable. That's not how we expect how the government works for the people. We are gathered here today to address what happened yesterday after a few inches of snow hit New York City in the first snowfall of the season. As a result, more than 100,000 New Yorkers live a nightmare on their way home. I got many complaints from many of them, senior citizens, working New Yorkers, everyone got stuck in the buses, in cars, not being able to cross the street. Constituencies were reporting to be stranded and stuck in vehicular traffic for 8 to 10 hours, and many for many more hours than that. I know that throughout the media you were able to collect many images and photos that support what today we are explaining, this situation that probably for the first time have happened in our city. People being stuck in vehicles without no one outside helping them. They were tired, hungry, out of gas, and many abandoned the safety of the car to walk on highways as they found themselves in traffic that was not safe and there was no moving. I can tell you that at one point I was at 127 in San Nicolas Avenue, an avenue that is supposed to be two-way street. All the cars, they were only moving north. No cars that were coming south. And there was many children, senior citizens coming out from the buses. I even took the photo last night, walking in the snow street, not being safe. At some point, I even looked back and I came out from my car and I saw close to me Councilmember Andy King. And I asked him, what are you doing here? Are you from the Bronx? At the same time, I also got a phone call for Councilmember Jonah, who was in First Avenue trying to move. But their story is the story of every New Yorker that lived that situation last night. As I say, I personally was stuck in the highway, not in the street. We didn't take the highway, we came local for more than 10 hours coming home to the Heights from Washington Street in Brooklyn. I saw senior citizens, students, parents with their children walking on the black ice on the street and sidewalks. They were not safe, they were not there, there were no one guiding them to be sure that they were safe. The MTA also had major delays uptown as trains passing on elevated platforms were encountering issues. Many riders, they were going sliding through the stair because they also had ice in many stations. This situation was poorly handled, which put the lives of many New Yorkers at risk. We had to learn from this situation so that it would not happen in the future. We understand that there were non-related issues to the storm that aggravate the traffic situation, such as the closing of the George Washington Bridge in the back of where we are here standing today. It complicates the flow of traffic. We know when the George Washington Bridge is not working, the crossroads, all part of Manhattan also get impacts. However, my concern was, where were the men and women from traffic, from DOT, from all the agencies, helping people to cross intersections, to guiding them so that they could be safe? We can do better, and we should do better. And we should be vigilant of our agencies and the governments so that they can work for the people. The city governments should be prepared to handle a few inches of snowfall in a city like ours. We have done it before. It should not happen yesterday. City agencies could do a better job in responding to the demands caused by the weather. I wonder if there was an interagency plan activated from early afternoon yesterday, if they didn't. I believe that didn't happen in our city, and they should happen because we have done it before. Hoy estamos aquí por una situación muy específica. El gobierno de la ciudad de Nueva York le falló a los neoyorquinos y a los visitantes. El hecho de que se cerrara el George Washington empeoró la situación, pero no fue la única razón de por qué neoyorquinos y visitantes estuvieron atrapados por horas y horas, sin poder llegar a su casa. Yo vi en la 127 y San Nicolás, parado por más de una hora en esa intersección, como familia con sus niños, personas mayores, se salían de los autobuses en las calles que estaban llenas de hielo. Los carros, there was cars driving through the sidewalk in many intersections, in many places. I saw them in San Nicolás Avenue between 127 and 130. Where were the police officers? Where were sanitation? Where were the men and women that were supposed to be there on the street? They were not there. Hoy nosotros estamos demandando con mis compañeros aquí que tenemos que ser vigilantes, que tenemos que asegurarnos que las agencias de Nueva York tengan un plan de coordinarse mejor. Lo hemos hecho en el pasado, lo debimos de hacer ayer, debemos de aprender de esta lección para que no ocurra en el futuro inmediato. We had to learn from the situation that happened yesterday so that it would not happen again. We will hold a hearing together with my chairman. He will address all of you right now. The Committee of Sanitation, the committee that I chair of Transportation, the Committee of Public Safety, already got the okay from the Speaker Johnson to hold a hearing as soon as possible, to go deep on why we were not prepared yesterday. Hoy nosotros estamos anunciando que con el Comité de Sanidad que coordina el concejal Antonio Reynoso, el Comité de Public Safety que dirige Donovan Richard y el comité que yo dirijo de transportación, ya tenemos el ok del vocero de la ciudad de Nueva York, Corey Johnson, para organizar una audiencia pública lo más pronto posible, para ir a la profundidad sobre cómo fallamos ayer, cómo podemos evitar esta situación. So with that, let's hear from my colleague here, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Danis Rodriguez for setting up this meeting at the foot of the George Washington Bridge, which truly is the epicenter of the disaster that was this snowstorm last night. The city of New York should not be upset, it should be embarrassed. The fact that we couldn't handle 6 inches of snow here in the city of New York, that it would cripple all of our transportation systems and not allow for the common flow of traffic, not allow for school buses to allow for kids to get home, not allow for the MTA and buses to move, emergency vehicles to move, is an embarrassment. It is very clear that this is not only a Department of Sanitation problem or issue. The Department of Transportation has failed. The Department of Parks and not being able to prepare fallen trees throughout the city of New York. OEM, the Office of Emergency Management, not being able to respond to an emergency. The NYPD not being able to present themselves in cases of emergencies to help with the flow of traffic. We failed in all levels of government. The city of New York is going to have to answer these questions, and we're going to demand that they do that in a hearing. Idanis Rodriguez and I have spoken with Donovan Richards, of the chair of public safety, to ensure that this hearing happens as soon as possible. We need answers. 6 inches of snow should not paralyze the city of New York, and it's exactly what happened. The people are mostly upset because we were so unprepared. The only silver lining we have here in the city of New York is that it was the first snowstorm of the season. Many more are going to happen. And if this is a reflection of the work that is going to be done by the city of New York, then we are in big trouble. But we won't allow that, and we will make sure that everyone is held accountable. We also need to look to the state. The bridges were shut down. The bridges were not something that the city of New York is responsible for handling. So we want to make sure that there is a way that they can be involved as well. That's why to be joined here by Assemblymember De La Rosa is extremely valuable. We need to know what happened at the state level, at the city level, and not allow this to happen again. Nosotros en este momento tenemos un problema muy grave aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York, que con 6 pulgadas de nieve podemos completamente parar todo lo que hacemos aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York. Si nosotros no arreglamos esto ahora, vamos a ver un problema más grande en el futuro cuando vemos más nieve. Nosotros ahora mismo estamos buscando asegurar que nuestros comités puedan tener una junta para buscar la respuesta de los problemas y las preguntas que tienen la comunidad de nosotros. Estoy orgulloso de poder estar aquí con Idanis y con De La Rosa para asegurar que nosotros busquemos la contabilidad de la agencia del gobierno de Nueva York. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And now I'll give you Assemblywoman Carmen Rosa, who is also a member of the Corporation Committee that oversees also Port Authority and other transportation agencies.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilman Rodriguez and Councilmember Reynoso. You know, we're Upper Manhattan. We're used to traffic. We are at the foot of the bridge, and this is where we live. This is where our community is. So we're used to congestion. But what happened last night wasn't just congestion. It was a disgrace. It was an utter failure of government and emergency response to respond to a storm that was already predicted. And so we know that our communities are asking us for answers, and we want to be part of the solutions. I sit on the Corporations Committee in the State Assembly, and we know that there was issues at the Port Authority terminals throughout, right here on 179th, but also downtown. We know that New Yorkers, as well as the residents of New Jersey, had a horrible time traversing our cities. We also know the impacts that it had right here at home. I will tell you that at 3:30, almost 4, I was on my way to a conference in New Jersey when I realized I shouldn't go, because it took me over 20 minutes to even get to the foot of what was the highway. I said I shouldn't go over there. The snow is starting to fall. And right as we were turning back around to come back into the district, we were rear-ended. Nothing happened. We're all safe. The car is fine. However, it just goes to show you that in the middle of what was a very minor snow event, our city was unprepared. We did not see the salt trucks. We did not see the plows until the storm began to fall in a way that could no longer be contained. And so last night, I got the calls from community members who were worried about their loved ones going missing. People thought their loved ones were missing. I got calls from people who said, at what time should I call the police? It should not take my mother 4 hours to come home from a job in the Bronx. And so we owe answers to our communities. We owe answers to these families who had to traverse the streets. The pictures that we received last night from St. Nicholas Avenue, even before you get on the bridge, of cars facing in all directions, emergency vehicles stuck, utterly stuck. The ambulances were stuck. We had a fire, a fatal fire last night on 158th Street, where one person lost their lives. I'm pretty sure that the emergency services response was compromised by everything that was happening in our city, when it took hours simply to navigate a few street blocks. So today we're here with our colleagues in government to say that we're not only here to call out the failures, but to say that we want to be part of a solution. We want to go back and have hearings. We want to make sure that agency heads understand the impact that this has had on our communities, and so that we can be prepared for future storms. Our children were stuck in schools. We heard reports of children who were stuck because their parents could not get to them. I have a 4-year-old. Imagine the fear of not knowing when your parent is coming to pick you up. And so we are committed to making sure that future events like this do not cripple our city, but also to call for accountability for what happened last night, and to call for a response that is united. The city and the state must come together, not only when it's economically feasible, but also when it means the livelihoods and the quality of life of the people of this city. Mass transit was at a halt. I received the pictures of 168th Street train station where not one more person fit on that platform. We know that our transit system is crippling, and we know that infrastructure investments are necessary. But in times of storms and in times of emergency, that is exacerbated by the desperation of not knowing how you're gonna get from one stop to another. And so we must come together and continue to work together to get a response. En español, soy Carmen de la Rosa, soy la asambleísta de esta comunidad. Nuestra comunidad está impuesta a lidiar con el tránsito y el tráfico. Sabemos, este es el Alto Manhattan, no hay parqueos. La congestión es algo que vivimos todos los días. Pero nuestra comunidad está aquí, en medio de la entrada del puente de George Washington. Y anoche fue caos. Muchas personas nos llamaron para decirnos que creían que sus familiares estaban desaparecidos, que una persona que trabaja en el Bronx y vive en el Alto Manhattan duró más de 9 horas para llegar a su casa. Me preguntaban, ¿a qué hora llamo a la policía? ¿A qué hora los reporto desaparecidos? Es una desgracia que nuestra ciudad, la ciudad más rica del mundo, no puede tener una respuesta inmediata y eficiente para un evento tan insignificante como lo que fue anoche. Sí, fue mucha nieve y sí cayó rápidamente, pero sabíamos que iba a pasar. No nos debió de coger de sorpresa de la manera que lo hizo. Y nosotros, como oficiales electos, le tenemos que responder a nuestra comunidad para que ellos entiendan qué pasó y por qué pasó, y asegurarnos que en el futuro tengamos un plan para que esto no vuelva a ocurrir. Nuestros niños que estaban en la escuela esperando que sus padres llegaran, no debieron sentir ese miedo. Nosotros, cuando estábamos de camino a una conferencia en New Jersey, el carro de nosotros fue impactado. ¿Por qué? Porque no hubo preparación. ¿A dónde estaban los agentes para dirigir el tráfico? ¿A dónde estaba la policía para asegurarse que las emergencias en la calle no se escalaran a un nivel que no se pudiera controlar? Nosotros vamos a ser parte de esa solución. Cogemos la responsabilidad que somos miembros de este gobierno y vamos a pedir contabilidad para que esto no vuelva a ocurrir en futuros emergencias. Gracias.
Thank you. And I'm going to be calling Richard from Community Board 12, who represents this area. But one thing that I got to say, the situation was bad here in Manhattan. Yes, imagine the underserved community. I heard many phone calls from many people, especially from the Bronx, that they say, guy, if the situation was bad there, for us it was even worse. So hoy también tenemos que decirle que si la situación fue mal aquí en Manhattan, mucho peor fue en los lugares pobres donde vive mayormente nuestra gente latina, donde vivieron una pesadilla todavía mucho más fuerte. Now let's call Richard Lewis from Community Board 12.
Just briefly, I think the message has been very clear. We can do better, but I want to say something that given all the technology, all the communication, we must do better. And I think we spend a lot of money, a lot of time on snowstorms in this city. I'm a lifelong resident, and again, this is unacceptable. So I hope the hearings will uncover what has been taking place, and again, this should not ever happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question? Who's responsible to remove the snow and the bridge? As far as we know, we've been told that's a Port Authority responsibility when it happened to the bridge, in the part of the bridge.
I talked to Department of Sanitation this morning. They claim the
question is, who's responsible for the problem? What I can say is that I don't think that even the media captured on time, like the situation that it was happening. Like I was stuck for real an hour and a half, San Nick at the intersection of 127, and I even turned 1010 News to see, if there was like a lot of information, recording, getting phone call. And I think it was like late at night that probably many people realized what was it, the real situation that was going on. What shocked me was that as I was driving north from San Nicolas Avenue, I was thinking about, probably the NYPD, sanitation, DOT, they will have, I understand that we'll have issue with getting the ambulance, the police to get into the middle in the avenue because there was no room to move. And then my head was about, well, it looked to me that they don't have any space to be moving traffic. So when I got to 145th and San Nick, I only saw in the whole area from San Nicolas Avenue, I only see one police avenue. At the intersection of 145th and San Nicolas Avenue, moving car. We failed in many areas, preventing, having the salt in the street. But also, where were the men and women from traffic? Where were the NYPD? Where were people designated from agencies? For me, one of the issues that we faced was about lacking of the interagencies being coordinated on time and switch on a level of alarm that required for us to be prepared yesterday. So for me, we as a city has to take credit when we have done it before, when we have been well prepared. Yesterday, the city failed, the government failed. We should learn from this situation so that it will not happen again.
Councilman, did the mayor fail yesterday?
I believe that the mayor, as a leader of the city, as you know, he always takes responsibility. I believe he could do better coordinating all the agencies, and I believe that the lack of interagencies coordination, the lack of having men and women on the street, moving cars, moving vehicles, was for me one of the main issues why many individuals in average, they have spent more than 10 hours to move few miles in our city.
Do you think congestion pricing, which would reduce the number of cars in Manhattan, might help the situation if that had been the case, if there were congestion pricing?
Well, it's not about, last night was not about congestions. And we know that the timing when we got the snow, it was like during the rush hour. There's many factors that we will hear from individuals explaining why that situation could not be avoidable. At the end of the day, for me, it's about a lack of check in our agencies. For me, it was about a lack of having a plan of moving cars, moving vehicles in the street. We have done it before. Why we were not able to do it now? So congestion is real. We have to address it. I support congestion price and everything that it takes to reduce the numbers of vehicles in our streets. But yesterday was a lack of having a plan to have men and women in the street and preventing this situation from happening with a few inches of snow that we got.
I was going to say something on congestion pricing. So I am also in favor of congestion pricing. And I think that it's an opportunity for us to also take up the issue of congestion pricing. The legislature will be back in Albany in a few weeks, and we do need to look at congestion pricing as a real solution to the issues that we see here every single day. Obviously, the issues of the storm were exacerbated by the emergency response, but also let's think about the MTA, right? There should be no congestion on the MTA, and there is, because we already know that the failure of the MTA has been funding the capital plan. We need a dedicated funding stream, and I believe that congestion pricing is part of that solution. So yes, this is an opportunity to talk about congestion pricing. Is congestion pricing gonna completely avoid what happened last night? Absolutely not. It's part of the solution, but it is not the whole entire answer.
Bueno, eso es lo mismo que hoy estamos diciendo, que la pesadilla de ayer ocurrió porque las agencias no hicieron un plan coordinado, porque no hubo un despacho. You know, for me, that situation yesterday should be treated as a level of high crisis in the city. For me, it was a day to activate all the men and women in all agencies to be in the street, helping to move traffic, helping senior citizens. Yo creo que lo de ayer, lo que es un ejemplo de cómo las agencias de la ciudad de Nueva York deben de ser chequeadas más a menudo para asegurarnos que tengan planes que lo activen inmediatamente y que cuando ocurren crisis como esta, despachar en las calles todo el personal activo de reserva que pueda tener la ciudad para ayudar a las personas mayores, a los niños y a la gente trabajadora.
Concejal, ¿cómo explicarle a los niños que tuvieron que vivir esta situación por una falta de prevención nacional?
No hay forma. Yo creo que debemos de sacar, como neoyorquinos, nosotros siempre tenemos que salir de las peores situaciones más fuertes. Y de esta situación tenemos que aprender, tenemos que hacer diálogo con los estudiantes, tenemos que explicarlo a ellos que hubo un gobierno que le falló a ellos, tenemos que enseñarle a ellos que jueguen un papel activo en sus voces. So the question is, how do we explain to the students that they were stuck in buses or they were holding in the school because after school program was supposed to be happening? What I say as New York City and as New Yorkers, we have been in a situation where we've been going through difficult time. And it doesn't matter if that happened few hours, in hours or days. We had to come out from this stronger. We had to come out getting the best experience. We need to teach our students that the government failed yesterday, that we could do better, that we had to put a better system of check and balance in our agencies so that they deliver and plan to serve all New Yorkers. The answer is yes. The answer is that in New York City, we have many cars.
So obviously, a ton of things went wrong yesterday, and there was maybe some bad luck involved with the changing forecast, but the city absolutely has to do a better job. The mayor said, I believe on Brian Lair this morning, that he thinks they need to do a better job, and he is conducting a full operational review of what's happening. I want everyone to know that, rest assured, the City Council will exercise our oversight authority and ensure that this operational review is transparent and all-encompassing so New Yorkers understand what exactly happened here. The bottom line is that what happened last night is unacceptable, and I said it last night, many other members of the City Council and elected officials said it last night. I have been in touch with the mayor. I called him last night, and I spoke with the sanitation commissioner as well. And I think it's important to admit when we don't do things in the best way and figure out how to do things better. So the council is looking at all the factors. We are going to use our oversight. We want to ensure this doesn't happen again because we're at the beginning of the storm season. And for New Yorkers who sat in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of traffic last night, I'm sorry. We need to do a better job. And the council will do our part to make sure that we have a transparent process and review to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I think Catherine Garcia is a very good sanitation commissioner. I think she's done a very good job in the past. Yesterday, something happened which shouldn't have happened, and we want to get to the bottom of what that is to make sure it doesn't happen again over the course of this winter season. I'm happy to take questions.
In past storms, the mayor has been out front the day before. Don't drive if you don't have to drive. Please stay home, work from home. There was none of that this time. Was he too complacent about this weather?
I don't think anyone realized what was actually going to happen. So the forecast did change a little bit. It was up during the course of the afternoon. But yes, I mean, you're right. Typically, the mayor gets out there and tells people stay off the roads, has all the different agencies there to make sure that the public is watching and are getting up-to-date information. That didn't happen yesterday, and I think we have to understand why that didn't happen, and I assume that the next time there's a storm coming, it will happen.
Is there also, though, the mayor said today on Brian Lair,
you prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. You have to understand, and maybe we need to have a multi-agency review that looks at the radar and the satellite forecasting and modeling on it. And we have to bring all these agencies together, because not every storm is the same, not every forecast is correct, but you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And yesterday there were things which showed that there wasn't the appropriate amount of preparation. I mean, Upper Manhattan and the Bronx were hit really, really, really bad. I mean, the Bronx was a disaster. So was Upper Manhattan from Harlem all the way up to Inwood. But similarly, it was bad getting to Brooklyn. It was bad in Lower Manhattan. It wasn't as bad as it was up there. So I don't think it was just the issue of the George Washington Bridge having the 20-car pileup and the Major Deegan being shut down. I mean, that contributed and exacerbated the problem up in the Bronx. But you had similar problems in Brooklyn and in Lower Manhattan and in Queens and even on Staten Island. So you need to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Corey, I have a question for you. We are being inundated.
I'll come back.
We are being inundated with people, from parents, tweets from parents, from teachers saying some kids didn't get home on the bus until after midnight. The drivers then got back home after 2 a.m. and had to turn around and bring the kids back to school today. Do you think the school should have been closed because parents shouldn't have to put their kids on buses when drivers were sleep deprived, when teachers were also getting home late and were also sleep deprived?
Well, I want to look and see the exact number of students and the exact number of delays. The council had a hearing about a month ago on school bus delays, and one of the bills that we're contemplating is putting GPS trackers on these buses that parents would have access to understand exactly where their children are when they're coming home from school. I mean, I think the incident yesterday shows the real need for that. The question on closing school, again, I can't make that judgment until I know how many of those young people were delayed, those children were delayed getting home, because closing school is a big undertaking that affects over 1 million children and their families and all the teachers and principals and assistant principals. So I don't have enough information to give an informed answer on that right now.
Moving on from school, the mayor should have been more proactive. I mean, we had, in the past, the mayor had, gone out there every single morning, because even when the forecast changed, it changed in midday. Should he have then said to people, shelter in place, don't put your cars on the road, this is not going to be a good thing? Should he have done something to prevent what is really Carmageddon?
I mean, Andrew asked, and I think it goes to what he said, which is in the past, whether it is before a snowstorm or after the Chelsea bombing, which happened in my district, you need to overly communicate with the public. You need to communicate ahead of time and throughout the storm. The mayor has done that in the past. I think the reason why it didn't happen yesterday is because they didn't think it was going to be a rough storm, but clearly it was, and we have to prepare for that. So I think now moving forward, you need to overly communicate each and every time, even if it's not going to be that bad.
Put position better more quickly yesterday. Have you got any answers? Because they claim, the sanitation department, that the streets were sold, that the plows were.
Well, this is why we need a full operational review, and it's why the council is going to use its full oversight authority, because I think in less than 24 hours, we're not going to, and we haven't gotten all the answers on all these really important questions. When did the salt spreaders go out? When did the Sanders go out? What time were they deployed? Where were they being deployed from? I know there were issues that when things got really bad in Upper Manhattan and in the Bronx, a lot of the trucks and equipment got stranded, and they actually couldn't get on the roads with the Major Deegan shut down and with the RFK Bridge backed up. The RFK Bridge was backed up, Triborough was backed up until 3 o'clock in the morning. People couldn't get past it. And so these are the questions that we need to answer, and I know the mayor's having a press availability later today, which hopefully he'll be able to shed more light.
We're going to indict the mayor, though, on this. And I'm not defending the mayor on this, but then we indict all of the weather forecasters also. We indict ourselves. We didn't say we were going to 6 inches of snow. Nobody said that.
I'm a meteorology fan and geek, but it's a good job to have because you don't get in trouble when you're wrong. And clearly it affects the decision-making process of people in government who need to make these decisions based on the health and safety of New Yorkers. I think in the past, the mayor has overly communicated, which is a good thing, with Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Esposito and Commissioner O'Neill with him there with him, and I think that should have happened this time. Juliet?
Yeah, so does it take, in your estimation, too long for, let's say, the Department of Sanitation or any other agency to readjust to something that's changing pretty quickly? You know, it's like driving the bus and trying to make a turn, and it takes a long time. And what could be done to improve that response?
These are the questions that we want to get answers to, but let me just say this. We got, I think, 6 or 7 inches of snow as it was measured in Central Park, which was a record. I saw Andy Newman from the New York Times tweet out that it's like a 100-year record of the amount of snow that was out there. But it was still only 6 inches of snow. So we're New York City. We get blizzards. We get 12 inches, 14 inches, 18 inches, 2 feet of snow. We should have been prepared to deal with 6 inches of snow, even if it was a record. And that's why we want specific answers to the deployments, what time the salt spreaders went out, where they were being sent from, and the preparation that was done. And the council, I think as we have over the last 11 months in my time as speaker, we are going to use that oversight authority, and we're going to do it pretty quickly.
Do you think that the DOS has been cutting back on shifts or cutting back in any way on the methodology and how they're handling this?
I don't have any information on that. I actually do. I'm not remembering it specifically, so you should ask the mayor and Commissioner Garcia later. But she was telling me yesterday that a lot of the folks that had to stay on were people that were already had overtime, or there was some personnel issue where they were not cutting back. They actually were using people that had already had a lot of hours on. Jill?
Corey, can you tell us, you know, the mayor last month announced that Catherine Garcia was going to take on a second role as the city's lead paint czar. Do you have any concerns that perhaps she's a little spread thin, you know, that she should be focusing only on sanitation?
I liked how you used the metaphor spread. So I really, really think Catherine Garcia is fantastic. I think she's been a great commissioner and has done a great job. So when I saw that she was appointed to this very important position on lead, I thought that's a very talented person. I have similar positive feelings about Lorraine Grillo, who has done a great job at the School Construction Authority, but was also given the task of leading DDC, the Department of Design and Construction. And I think that 2 roles in positions that are that major potentially is something that could be distracting. You want to run a city agency like sanitation, which has the daily obligations of picking up the trash in New York City, and during the winter months plowing the streets and making sure the city's prepared effectively. And Lorraine is doing a great job at SCA, but DDC has billions of dollars worth of projects all over the city. So I think there are other talented people out there, and we should probably ensure, and it's going to be part of our questioning, of who are the operational folks that are still there with day-to-day executive experience in these agencies. Katie? Yeah.
In New Jersey, the elected officials there are being really contrite in what happened, and they're apologizing. I mean, do you think, especially top down, that the mayor, I know on the radio, he didn't really seem apologetic. He said that, well, I was second in 2. Do you think that he really owes an apology to the people here in the city and elsewhere who traveled in and out?
I apologized.
Does the mayor, that's kind of my question, does the mayor have an apology problem?
I apologized.
But the mayor, no, but I'm saying the mayor hasn't said a word.
I'm not going to tell the mayor how to talk and how to communicate. I think in the past he has overly communicated, which has been effective in advance of snowstorms. I apologize to New Yorkers who got stuck in traffic, and if the city wasn't prepared, I'm sorry, and we're going to do our job as a council in exerting our oversight to make sure that hopefully this doesn't happen again. I don't run the Department of Sanitation, but we have oversight authority, which we will use.
Do you think he was focused too much on his planned trip to D.C., where he was speaking at some forum?
I have no idea.
Why are you sorry? There are other agencies here that apparently weren't prepared. The MTA didn't have chains on their buses. The George Washington Bridge is a Port Authority bridge. What's your communication been like with those other agencies that are controlled at the state level, and how culpable do you think they were in what unfolded?
I've only been in touch with the mayor and the sanitation commissioner. I haven't been in touch with the MTA or any other levels of government. I've been in touch with my colleagues on the council who were apoplectic last night. Vanessa Gibson was in traffic for 9 hours. Fernando Cabrera was in traffic for 5 hours. Diana Ayala was in traffic for 4 hours. Andy King was in traffic for 4 hours. So the folks from Upper Manhattan and the Bronx, it took them somewhere between 4 and 9 hours to get home, which is, I think, emblematic of what many New Yorkers who live in Upper Manhattan and the Bronx were experiencing. Chaim Deutsch was coming from Lower Manhattan back to Southern Brooklyn, and it took him, I believe, 4.5 hours to get home. So it wasn't just Upper Manhattan and the Bronx, it affected Lower Manhattan, Queens, Staten Island, and Brooklyn as well. I would say that, you know, there wasn't the best response, it seemed like, in New Jersey either, on the preparation and what happened there. Clearly, something happened on the George Washington Bridge, which is why we want to look and understand what time it happened, what preparation was done before that, how were the MTA police involved, how were the operational folks involved with clearing the bridge there and desalting the bridge there, or how were they involved de-icing the bridge, how were they involved? These are all questions that we need to get to.
Corey, how did traffic here affect the region, Westchester, Long Island, New Jersey?
How did traffic in the city?
How did what New York City did or didn't do affect these other parts of the region?
It's hard to know, but what I think it all had a cascading domino effect on each other. I'm not sure it came from one spot. I mean, clearly when you shut down the George Washington Bridge, which is, I think, the busiest daily bridge in the United States of America, that is going to have an impact on New Jersey, on Westchester, on Rockland County, on Manhattan, on the Bronx, and all of the connecting interstates. So, and then the Major Deegan got shut down to one lane. The Triborough was backed up, I think, for 12 hours where people couldn't get by. So it's hard to pinpoint where exactly that happened. I think what we heard, what I heard was that they believe that this all started to cascade from the GW, and that's why we need to get answers to understand if that's actually true.
And if I could just follow up, you've apologized. Why are you apologizing?
Because I'm in a position of leadership. I don't run the Department of Sanitation, but I think it's important that you New Yorkers know that people who are in positions of influence in the city, that, you know, sort of, I feel your pain. I don't really feel your pain because I live in Chelsea and I was able to get home in a much quicker way than many other people. But it's important to say when, you know, you need to do better, and also say when you're wrong. In the past, I said I was wrong on the Uber bill that we contemplated 3 years ago, and this summer I said I was wrong on that bill. It's okay to say you're wrong. It's okay to apologize and say you could do better. There's nothing wrong with that.
So, Corey, what's the next step? Forecast change. Have done anything different once they moved to that?
I think, again, I don't have all the exact information, but I think what happened was that by the time it changed, the vehicles, the sanitation vehicles, and then the traffic chokes that occurred, everything was stuck. You weren't able to actually move the vehicles from the Bronx, around the Bronx, because of the traffic that had piled up in the Bronx. So it became a catch-22 where you needed to deploy the vehicles in another way, but you couldn't because of the traffic on the roads. And again, this is only 6 inches of snow.
Now,
Juliet?
what's the next step? You say you want to investigate what you're doing and
Hi, Karen. A neighbor. We're going to use our oversight authority, and we're going to do it pretty quickly. So I can't give you an exact schedule, but I think me saying what I have said in the last 10 minutes, I am being a lot more moderate in my tone than 90% of the members in the city council and the fire that they're breathing today. And so there are many council members and New Yorkers who want serious answers before we get into the later winter months so that this cannot and should not happen again. The chains should be put on the buses. The MTA is claiming, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, the MTA is claiming that the chains didn't have anything to do with why the buses were getting stuck, that the tires themselves were fine for the storm that we were in, and that they're made for that. They're saying that the reason why the New York City Transit buses were being delayed was because of all the other traffic that had accumulated in the areas where you were seeing the significant amounts of congestion. But the answer is yes, you prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. Jill.
The city school system canceled after school today, but they did it kind of in the middle of the day. Is it something that you think should be happening earlier? Obviously, parents now have to kind of scramble to make arrangements. What's the situation when they drop their kids off?
I mean, there are questions for the Department of Education and the Chancellor. Last night was parent-teacher conference night. And there were, you know, hundreds of thousands of parents who either were stuck at the parent-teacher conference because they couldn't get home in the traffic or couldn't get to the parent-teacher conference. And many of those parents had to have their children with them in the school, which delayed them getting home as well. So there's that issue. There's the issue of the school buses themselves and why did it take so long, and then they had to turn around, as Marcia said before, and come back and drive the next morning. And there's the issue of cancellation of after school today. These are all we're going to have questions for the NYPD, we're going to have questions for the MTA, we're going to have questions for DOT, for sanitation, for the Department of Education. When a storm hits, it needs to be, and it always has been in the past, a multi-agency coordinated effort and approach to deal with the issues and be able to understand when you make one decision, how does it affect everything else? So these are the questions that we're going to ask. Rosa?
Can I ask you a question? I got two. One, is this a security risk? Like, we just learned that if you shut down the Washington Bridge, the entirety of Manhattan and some of the Bronx comes to a total standstill. Are there, like, homeland security implications for that? I mean...
I'm not an expert on that, so I don't want to just to give you an armchair analysis, but I'll say that when Sandy hit and the area that we're standing in right here was underwater, over here to 10th Avenue in this part of Chelsea, you know, you really couldn't get in and out of Manhattan during that time because of what happened with the flooding. And that hopefully taught us some lessons about during a significant event, what are our preparations? And I think that needs to be an answer that goes to Commissioner Esposito from the Office of Emergency Management on issues in that vein.
And then second, this happened to be an issue that affected a bunch of council members very directly. They were stuck in traffic, partly because they were all driving. I mean, when we have subway emergencies, we don't necessarily get this kind of outrage from council members. Is this going to get kind of like spectacular weight because they happen to be affected compared to other crises in the city, like living in NYCHA, which they don't?
That's a great question. And I think that council members, if you saw what has happened in these NYCHA hearings, council members have been enraged about the conditions. Vanessa Gibson is one of my dear colleagues and friends. She has spent day after day after day over the course of weeks in Claremont Village when there were issues with rats. She herself was there every single day with those tenants. She wasn't bringing media with her. She wasn't tweeting about it. She wasn't, you know, calling the press up. She was there because she cared. So even though you saw some outreach from council members, these council members care about their constituents. Vanessa has showed that day in and day out. I do think we need less cars. I think we need to have less cars in New York City. That's why I support congestion pricing. If we had less cars on the road yesterday, maybe it would have made a difference.
Let me just ask one more question. Why are these council members driving at the subway?
I take no issue with them. I don't own a car. I've never have my entire life. I've never owned a car. But I have no issue with them. If you're someone who lives in South Brooklyn or Eastern Queens or the middle of the Bronx, these council members have very busy schedules. Before I was speaker, I had a very busy schedule. And if you need to get around in a certain way, it's actually easier if you're going to, many council members are going to 1, 2, 3, 4 community meetings a night. You can't do that all the time on mass transit. So I have no issues with council members driving cars. You know, Margaret Chin is able to walk to work because she lives in Lower Manhattan. I'm able to take the subway 2 stops because of where I live in Chelsea. Not every council member has that, you know, are able to do that every single day. Any other questions?
Council member who drives?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Rich?
Thank you.
What grade do you give the city in its response? What grade do you give the forecast?
I can't give a grade until I have more answers, but what I can say is we need to have more answers. It needs to be transparent. But what I can say is that what happened yesterday is unacceptable. Even if we had got a bad forecast, even if the weather changed a little bit, we still need to do better. You need to prepare for you need to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I don't know if that's what happened yesterday. I do think that Catherine Garcia is a very talented leader in government. I've had nothing but great experiences with her, not just on storms, but on sanitation issues generally. So I haven't lost my faith in her. But I think we need to have a transparent process and answer questions. Anyone else? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Eh,